Which propaganda effort was so successful? People still believe it today. Carrots make your vision better. That teeth are supposed to be perfectly white. That big curvy line of toothpaste with a Dairy Queen curl we've seen in every toothpaste ad. You don't need more than a pea-sized smear of paste on your brush. Sugar companies paid the media to say that fat made you fat. I mean, all food in extreme amounts will put you on the heavy side, but sugar is the true villain here. Columbus was the only person who believed the world was round. Literally everyone who could read knew that the earth was round. Nobody thought Columbus would fall off the edge. They thought his crew would starve to death before reaching the East Indies, and he totally would have. That Napoleon Bonaparte was short. He was 5 feet and 7 inches tall, which might be a little bit on the shorter side by modern standards, but it was around the average height for people back then. The idea that he was short actually came from a British propaganda campaign to mock him. Many Korean people believe that fans can cause death. Even my mother, who moved to America in her mid-teens, still prohibits me from leaving a fan on overnight for fear of death. There is a conspiracy theory that the South Korean government spread this myth as propaganda to prevent energy overusage, but its origins are unknown. It's strange that many Koreans believe this myth considering it is one of the most technologically advanced countries. Knuckle cracking gives you arthritis. Diamonds as a symbol of eternal love. That fat is unhealthy. The nutrient that is, not actually being fat. Apparently in the 80s KFC ran a Christmas themed ad in Japan, and to this day the Japanese eat KFC on Christmas. That if you ask if someone is a cop, if they are a cop they legally are required to say yes they are. Of course they aren't required to. That defeats the entire purpose of working undercover. When Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, literally renamed propaganda that we want people to think is not bad to public relations and advertising, and he literally admitted it in a book he made called Propaganda. Propaganda is, quite literally, just media that is attempting to persuade you. It might be honest or dishonest, but, no matter what, it is still propaganda. That the old woman who sued McDonald's over burning herself with her coffee was just money hungry. For clarity, an elderly woman was a passenger in a car, pulled over in the lot to add sugar after getting a coffee and it spilled all over her lap. It burned her really bad and she just set out to get McDonald's to pay her hospital bills. BC they served the coffee way too hot. They ended up launching this whole PR campaign where they smeared this poor lady, even taking out spots in local papers over how silly and money hungry she was. Comedians, musicians, and radio hosts made fun of her and made her out to be money hungry instead of a victim. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That turning the light on in the backseat of the car is illegal. Camels don't store water in their humps. They store fat in their humps. Absinthe makes you horeless and it was propaganda because it was hurting the wine industry. People still believe dogs don't see in color, when in fact they do. They see less of it than humans do, but they most definitely see in color. MSG will kill you and is horrible to ingest. I'm allergic to MSG. Really? It is delicious and your body produces it naturally while breaking down regular salt. Some people do have sodium issues, and it may not be good for them, but that's a tiny micro percentage of people. Autism and vaccines. The original guy wanted to advertise his own vaccine but did not disclose this when he published a hit piece on the mainstream vaccine at the time. In a reputable journal, his alternative vaccine failed. His paper was bashed and ultimately retracted. Yet people smart enough to work at Google don't vaccinate their kids. Engagement rings are required for marriage. The McDonald's hot coffee smear campaign to hide the lawsuit. That you only use 10% of your brain. In reality, you use pretty much all your brain capacity, so neuroscience has proven quite thoroughly. Lie detector tests are accurate. They're junk science at best. People, when the inventor of the device and procedures used is on record saying it's crap, we should probably listen. Looking at you, Florida, for allowing LD test results as evidence in court. Nestle done a smear campaign saying formula feeding is best. They mainly done it in third world countries. Nestle owns majority of formula companies, so they got rich, and uneducated third world counties suffered as they would rather use this healthier option but made it with dirty water, meaning children died. Which wasn't needed as most have no issue making breast milk. That monosodium glutamate, MSG, is harmful. If such an allergy were ever possible, it has never been proven. You'd literally die, because it means you're either allergic to sodium or glutamate, which are in almost every single food or drink known to man. That Listerine invented the term halitosis for bad breath. They didn't. It predates them by decades. It's just something that sounds nice to say because you get to attack a big corporation. That a man should spend 2 months' salary for his future wife's wedding ring, which absolutely must be a diamond. Screw that. I spent a total of $150 for my wife's ring and she ducking loves it. And it's a sapphire. Diamonds are no more precious than any other precious gem. And manufactured gems are way easier to come by, are more perfect, and so much cheaper. As long as it's an actual ruby, sapphire, emerald etc. It will be just as good as one dug out of the ground. Fake ones are good for a team gift or just friends kind of gift. But they'll shatter pretty easy compared to the real thing. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Random beautiful person. If you masturbate you will go blind. Sort by controversial and grab some popcorn, folks. That a 4-year college education is the only way you'll succeed in life. The Armenian genocide never happened. My Turkish friends still believe this. That fat is the thing to avoid in foods, taking away the spotlight from sugar. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and that cereal, toast, sugary things are part of a balanced breakfast. Know plenty of people who function perfectly without eating anything for breakfast. Drinking fountains are unhealthy. The bottled beverage industry commissioned and publicized a series of studies in the early 1990s when they decided to get into the bottled water business. The problem was that their largest competitor was free and available in schools, parks, and public buildings everywhere. Anyone who took even a semester of biology knows that if you walk around and swab and culture anything, you'll find that it's covered in bacteria. That's ecology on planet Earth. The diamonds are worth anything. That Iraq had something to do with 9/11. That you're not fully clean until you're zestfully clean. Fairness cream racism in India. People actually believe that beauty lies in the color of the skin. Fairness creams are $1 billion industry in India. That you need to eat 3 or more large meals per day to be happy and healthy. And that a sugary breakfast is by far the most important part of that day. The word jaywalking, and the propaganda campaign around it, was invented by car companies to create the idea that streets were for cars and people who get hit by them are idiots. It worked smashingly. That dandelions are weeds. I recently discovered that these pretty yellow flowers were classified as weeds because of lawn culture and some successful marketing by herbicide companies. Dandelions have been used in food and medicine for centuries. That vaccines do more harm than good. The Red Scare was extremely effective. The diamonds are a girl's best friend, or breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Kellogg marketing campaign. Corporate anti-workers union propaganda. People actually believe that unionizing would be against their best interests. That Taco Bell sells grade D meat, or that their ground beef is equivalent to dog food. In the last few years, Taco Bell has quickly become one of the healthiest fast food chains, being one of the first to completely ban artificial ingredients. The comparison to dog food is ridiculous, as most commercial dog foods contain protein meal byproduct composed of the leftover and diseased parts of old dying animals. TLDRE Taco Bell. Edit. Didn't expect the response, but I'm happy to always defend one of my favorite foods that got me through a lot of late nights in college. The Smokey the Bear campaign. Fire is a natural part of the life cycle of a forest. There are even several species that need fire, like jackpine, essential habitat for a species of birds called jackpine warblers, whose seeds only germinate after a fire. Fires clear away underbrush and detritus too, making the soil more fertile for surviving plant life and successionary life. Unfortunately, the Smokey the Bear campaign, while good intentioned, was so successful that now we have massive buildups of highly flammable materials in the underbrush, and fires can rage for much longer than they would under natural conditions, making controlled burns and other measures necessary. So next time a wildfire breaks out on the west coast, thank Smokey the Bear for it. Napoleon being small, it was British propaganda. That if we sit too close to the TV our eyes will turn square. In North America at least, bottled water is safer to drink than tap water. That you need to drink 8 glasses of water each day. There isn't actually an actual quantity of water you are required to drink each day. It all really depends on what you're doing and a lot of other factors. That you need to eat 3 meals a day, long as you eat 2000 calories a day, doesn't much matter in how many chunks you get them, plus or minus a couple hundred depending on your individual body and needs. That the US was founded as a Christian country. Most of the founding fathers were deists. Just read Thomas Paine's The Age of Reason to see what he thought of Christianity. The First Amendment doesn't exist just for the sake of Christians. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the ocean floor. In truth, this was a technically true but misleading factoid made up by someone in the US Navy who was tired of the Apollo program getting so much money and wanted a piece of the action. It was so successful that I've never been able to re-find the name of the official. Now almost every time someone's talking about how mysterious and unknown the deep ocean is, we get this old cliche registered sign. That Scandinavia runs on socialism. You give a diamond ring to propose. This wasn't done before one jewelry store made it an ad. The Nazi propaganda effort against the Jews in the 30s and early to mid 40s was extremely successful to the point that, although not common, some people still believe their lies. Some people here seriously not understanding the difference between actual propaganda and something false that ended up getting spread around amongst the populace. Mother birds rejecting their babies if you touch them is hardly propaganda, nor is turning the light on in the back of the car being illegal. They're just commonly spread myths. Jaywalking. Jay is a slur against inexperienced people. It has some connotations of racism against black people. Streets used to be for everyone. No, it wasn't perfect, but it was made to work, and it did. Then cars came along, and the term jaywalker, by car companies, to make people feel stupid for walking in the street like they always did. It worked. Codified in law. We have the huge swath of land used by cars we have today. That Nazi Germany, compared to the Allies, was superior in every way, from better generals, superior efficiency, to having better equipped and trained soldiers, which is true up to 1942. That if it was for the generals they would have won, but pesky Hitler didn't let them win. That the German generals didn't know about the Holocaust, the goal of the Nazis. That the USSR used human wave tactics. That if it wasn't for an unexpected force of nature, winter, Germany wows have taken Moscow. This all is a result of German propaganda after World War II, when the West let Germans generals write their war memories. British have bad teeth. They pretty low number of cavities. It's just that in US has high standards of what are good teeth, completely white, bleached etc, while elsewhere standards of what are good looking teeth is lower. German generals opposed Hitler's ideas on how to conduct war, mostly due to post-war self-serving and apologetic memoirs. Objective analysis shows they were okay with what they later claimed were idiotic offensives. German war technology in World War II was superior. Some was, but bulk was obsolescent because Germany simply couldn't make jump to next generation. For example, while Wallis fielded next generations of propeller planes, P-51 for example, Germany was still using pre-early war Me-109s simply because next generation had development and production problems. Harping on the fact that France sold Exocet missiles to Argentina, which is true but ignores the fact that during the war Argentina deployed mix of US, Israeli and even British weapons. That Vikings were mainly brutal and fearsome warriors. That you need milk after having stopped getting milk as a child. that vaccinations cause autism. This started the anti-vax movement. Duck those people. Land of the free. 17th place on the Freedom Index. 48th on the Press Freedom Index. Highest absolute and relative amount of people in prison. That you are responsible for global warming and littering dumping, not the giant companies with billions of dollars to cover up their crimes. I'm sorry my friends. Your efforts to prevent climate change affect almost nothing. Imagine filling all the oceans with pennies. The efforts you make in your lifetime to fix our environment is like removing a single penny from all those pennies in the ocean. But if the government regulated giant companies like BP, Pfizer, and ExxonMobil, we could remove every single penny from something like the Pacific Ocean. Propaganda against women after the Second World War. A huge change had to take place so women could care for their countries while men had to fight. They took over men's jobs, proving that they were more capable than they had ever been allowed to be. After the war, the balance shift apparently had to be put back. Advertisements were now portraying women as weak, stupid and needy. It became all about the shape of their bodies, the way they looked and the new appliances men should buy to keep their women busy where they belonged. In a time when the world was faced towards true change and equality, they pushed women back to their rightful place, a place where many men still think they belong. The belief that in Christianity the devil runs his own spooky place called hell, where he tortures people for not obeying the rules. None of this is really present in the Bible. Christian church leaders use this tool to keep people in churches, but none of it is really in scripture. Jesus spoke about hell, which is translated from the word Gehenna, a place outside of Jerusalem. This was said to be a cursed place, as people were burned and sacrificed there before the time of Jesus. When Jesus spoke of hell, he was saying that people who didn't follow his tenets are as good as those in this cursed village, are basically dead to the world around them. Most views of hell come from Dante's Inferno and Paradise Lost. Christian fanfic, if you will. Leaning your head back when you get a nosebleed. The dangerous falsehood that vaccines cause autism. In 47 of the 50 states your tax dollars do not go towards unemployment. And yet that myth persists. A sugar rush. Sugar does not make you hyper. Regardless of how many studies prove this, people still want to believe.